Welcome back to another market update video. Today we're going to be going through Bitcoin's weekly close and monthly close. We're also going to be looking at Bitcoin dominance's close, total 3, others, and some other interesting charts for altcoins. If that sounds interesting, please make sure to leave a like on the video. Subscribe as well to the channel if you're brand new. We've got a lot to discuss today. It is a market holiday in the US, so markets are not open, so we're expecting a bit of low volatility today. But we have still seen relatively sized moves even while markets have been closed in the US. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We're going to discuss all of it in today's video. Now, before we do, I just want to let you guys know, my VIP members are absolutely printing right now on USDUC. I gave the call for this meme coin all the way down at 0.02. You can see how much it has absolutely exploded since that call. Let's just measure exactly the ROI here. I think it's almost around a 5x, maybe 4x, something like that. Yeah, so just under a 4x, so a 3.8, 3.9x the VIP members made in a very short period of time. And you can see, I just opened up my Discord today, checked what people were saying, and you can see people are saying they're putting some profits into blue chips, USDUC off to the races again, USDUC, Archie, we are getting tired of winning. And then, I'm not going to say that, but Archie, you've done it again, mate. USDUC, insane call, perfect entry, and everything. So, you can see, right, the members are winning, and this is just what I wake up to on a daily basis in my VIP group. It's truly the place to be if you want to start winning. And if you want to join, the link's down below. Also want to say thanks for the support from you guys. I've been exposing some of the bad actors in the space, some of the stuff that's been going on YouTube, people taking money from meme coins to do buy alerts and getting the supply and then dumping it on their followers without telling them. I've been exposing some of this stuff, and I do appreciate you all giving me your support. So Bitcoin just had its weekly close, approximately 108.2, 108.3K, something like that. And that was in fact below the major level, which I would say ideally we should have closed above. Which is, you know, this line here from the 109K high. Ideally, a close above that would have been kind of like a trend reversal, would have swung us back into the bullish direction. But unfortunately, we didn't have it in us to close the month and close the week above that level. And if you look at the monthly side of things, you can see August was obviously a red month, and this is where we get into a bit of a seasonality debate, which I'm going to discuss in this video, regarding red September. All the YouTubers, okay, pretty much all of them, I'm not going to say every single one, but all of the mainstream YouTubers are calling for a red September. And that is the exact reason why I'm actually quite skeptical now of that red September thesis. Because when something becomes the consensus viewpoint amongst the masses, usually the thing they are talking about has already been front run and priced in by the whales. So when all of retail is saying, guys, we're going to have a red September, when everyone's saying that, the smart money, the people with brains, already took profits weeks ago because, you know, they were already front running it, and now they're actually buying back in. So quite often, once retail swings to one direction too much, in an opinion, quite often the contrary happens, and that is actually a bottom signal. And that's actually what I believe we're having right now. We've had a red August because everyone thinks September's going to be red. Now we're going into September. I think we've already priced that red in, and we're probably going to start moving up and, you know, going up in quite bullish fashion, in my opinion. And the reason I think this is because we have a rate cut in September that has, you would argue, been priced in, but also people are saying Powell is going to signal towards future rate cuts in his speech, which is going to be incredibly bullish for risk on markets as that gets front run. So if you look at Bitcoin's returns by the month, you can see August so far, obviously, well, it just closed, was red. Now, usually when you get a red August, that follows by a green September. And I'm not a major proponent of seasonality when it comes to Bitcoin. I think it can be quite mixed sometimes. Like everyone said, sell in May, go away. Look what happened to May. May was one of the most bullish months of the year. However, you cannot deny the trend that usually, if August is red, we see a green September. Okay, you can see August was red, green September. Now, there are some periods where that doesn't occur, all right? You can see that obviously sometimes you have both of them red, but that is not in post-halving years. That's usually in bear market years. So it's interesting to look at this. I don't really put too much emphasis and focus on seasonality when it comes to Bitcoin. Like I said, it's usually very mixed. Sometimes there's certain trends you see and then it just completely swings in the opposite direction and completely invalidates it. For me, what's more important is the actual price levels on Bitcoin. And as long as we kind of stay above 109K, then, we're relatively bullish. And as long as we don't invalidate, which I'm going to show you now what I mean by invalidate, a close into the Gaussian channel, as long as we don't do that, then I believe we're fine. If we close in the Gaussian channel, I believe it's probably over for Bitcoin and most likely over for altcoins this bull run. But right now you can see we're still in the clear of that. The Gaussian channel's down around 95K. So that's still relatively far below us. Now, in my recent live stream, which I recommend you watch if you haven't already, someone said to me, if Bitcoin dumps, we cannot have an altcoin season. And I actually take a bit of issue with that because Bitcoin can go down and still give us an altcoin season. In fact, one of the main markers of an altcoin season is a bit of weakness with Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin's going down, that is not a big concern for me. In fact, it's probably a sign of an altcoin season in and of itself. The thing Bitcoin can't do is invalidate cyclically. If it invalidates the bull run, then it's bad for altcoins. But it can chop, it can go sideways, it can do its thing, and altcoins can be in a season. It just can't, like I said, go down below that Gaussian channel on the weekly. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin dominance, we didn't necessarily have the close we would have hoped for. Bitcoin dominance closed literally on the support. Now, I still think it's possible we could lose this support and come down and break down. But you've got to say, especially with the strength of this weekly close, there is a solid chance now we could see dominance tick up a little bit and then come back down. Maybe it comes up to 60% and then we fall off a cliff with dominance. I've always said this has been the hardest point in Bitcoin dominance to predict. I've predicted the other moves very accurately. I predicted this as the top. I predicted we would find support at the golden pocket but then subsequently lose it. All three of those predictions have been accurate, but this is the hardest one, guys. This really, really is. It's very difficult to predict where dominance is going to go in the next few weeks. We can look at this chart and we can see every time it's hit this level, it's used it as support. But we can also look at other charts, which I'm going to show you in a moment, which are all signifying that altcoins might start rallying. The question is, will they rally and outperform Bitcoin? Like, we've got a total 3 perfect cup and handle, looking like we're probably going to be going up to minimum the 1.618, which is 1.48 trillion, and then the 2.618 around 1.98 trillion. This cup and handle formation that is formed on a macro chart is usually a very, very bullish sign, especially when you get it on such a big time frame. Like, when you've got it on such a big time frame, no one can really deny its validity because it's so damn obvious. You just pull up the chart and everyone can see it. We can also see that others' ETH has come down to its range lows, which is a very bullish signal for altcoins excluding Ethereum. So the likes of Sui, the likes of Tau, Casper, Aerodrome, those types of plays, they have come to their range lows in that Ethereum pair, which you can get by just literally going onto TradingView, searching others divided by ETH, and then just press enter, and you will see that exact chart that I've got on the screen. It came down to its macro support level. I would expect a bounce pretty much imminently for this chart. And then interestingly, others divided by Bitcoin also has come down to some form of a range low, I guess you could say. I mean, to me, it's more of a trendline support level, because a range low is more like this, where you can see obviously major macro support at that level. That's more of a range low, whereas the others Bitcoin chart, it's more of a macro support hit on a trend line. This is bullish. This is bullish for altcoins, especially with their Bitcoin pairs. You can see it looks like we're going to get a bounce here. And the last couple of times we had this occur, we saw major bounces on others to their Bitcoin pairs. In fact, The time it happened back in January 2021, we saw a major move of 574% with the others coins to their Bitcoin pairs. Massive outperformance. So if you were holding others, you 6x'd the performance of Bitcoin, essentially. 6.7x'd, in fact. So it all comes down to this. Not necessarily the decision in September, because most people expect it to be 25 basis point cuts, but it is what Powell says in his September conference. September 17th, get it in your diaries, because this is going to be a big, big event based off what Powell indicates going forward. Will he basically give the green light for a rate cut in October, which is currently looking around 50-50 on the odds? Maybe a slight leaning towards a rate cut, with 50 basis points actually having a 7% chance. So this is what it all comes down to, guys. Is not necessarily the decision in September, because most people expect it to be a decrease, but really what he says going forward, the indications he gives going forward for further rate cuts further down the year. Now, people have been asking me, what could this mean for a potential cycle top? I've been pretty clear that I believe we could see a Bitcoin cycle top in Q3, and an altcoin season would occur during that period. Maybe it could go on a week or two after Bitcoin tops, but usually we see some form of a close lining up between altcoins and Bitcoin topping out. What does this mean? So if Powell obviously cuts in September and downplays the probability of further cuts later on in the year, that could potentially mark a top in September. If, however, Powell cuts in September and in his speech he plays up the conversations of cuts further down the year, further down the line, then he could potentially push the goalposts a little bit further, and we could maybe see an October cycle top. It really depends what Powell says in his speech. And as always, guys, I put price levels above time frames. Everyone wants to predict the time of the top. It's human nature. You want to know when you're out. You want to know when you can go on vacation. You want to know when you can buy a Lamborghini. Everyone wants to know the time the top will occur. What's more important to me is the price the top will occur. And the price that I'm looking at for Bitcoin is between 127 and 131K. Now, that is one major price target for me. And another one you could look at is potentially these fib levels here, which are projecting 133 to 135K, if this is obviously the low here. But either way, I think Bitcoin tops out somewhere around the 130s. And I think total 3 tops out most likely at this 1.618, around 1.48 trillion. But it could go up to 1.98 trillion, especially if we extend maybe into October for a cycle top. So to me, everything's looking good for altcoins. As I say, we're printing on altcoins in a sideways market right now, making a ton of money. VIPs are very, very happy, and I'm going to be giving out some new calls going forward in the next few weeks. So make sure you are staying tuned with what's going on in the VIP group. Also, make sure you have the BloFin exchange. Make sure you're signed up to this using my link down below, and you'll claim yourself some free rewards depending on how much money you deposit. So it's a no-brainer. Set up an account, deposit some money, and if you want to trade, you can use this exchange. They have a ton of options, ton of trading pairs, and the best thing of all is it's non-KYC. It can operate in any country. There's no restrictions. But yeah, you can futures trade. You can buy coins on spot. This is the exchange that I personally use. You can see if I pull up my account right now, I'm going to leak some of the positions I'm currently in. I've got a bit of a long position here on Bitcoin, up in $48 of profit, and a long position on Fartcoin, which I'm currently in a little bit of a loss on, but I might actually buy some more into this position, because if we look at Fartcoin currently, let me just pull up the chart for Fartcoin, you can see that it's actually in a major level of support right now. It's literally sat right in a golden pocket. So I might actually double down on this Fartcoin long and buy some more, because it's looking really good right now. I'm not telling you that you should necessarily open a long, but I'm telling you there's a potential big money opportunity here if this swings around. So if you want to open longs, if you want to open shorts in the bear market as well, make sure you're ready and signed up to BloFin using the link down below. Guys, I really do appreciate you watching this video. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all in my next video. Goodbye.